Hi there. Welcome to your guided tour to RStudio. This is the moment where I kind of walk you through the different things that you will be seeing every time you open an RStudio window. So let's go ahead and open RStudio. You can see I have a bunch of other junk open on my screen, but here is the important part. Remember, as I said in the last video, please always open RStudio and only RStudio from the dock, if you've put it in the dock, or from the applications folder. Get rid of the installer packages that we used in the first video. I want you to always be opening it from applications because otherwise there's a risk of data loss. Okay, double click. Takes a second to open up, and here we are. You may get that weird bug that we saw in the first video. If you do, you can just hit reload, it's fine. And what you're seeing when you open RStudio is basically four, we're going to call them panes, as in window panes. So on the upper left is, I'll write here, I'm going to write comment. A hashtag is a comment character in R. Comment, this is the source pane where we write instructions that we plan to save, aka code or a program. Okay, so on that upper left pane, you will be able to write things that persist. If I wanted to, I could save what is now untitled 1 as a program, a something.r program. We won't do that right now. I just wanted to show you that that is what that upper left pane is for. On the lower left is the place where we'll be doing most of our work for the first couple of weeks of learning RStudio. This is called the console. So the console is key because the console is kind of where you practice. Some people do like to practice in the source pane. That is to say, they like to practice by actually writing code and running it. But in the console, you can practice one instruction at a time. So let's do that. Let's start by assigning a value to a variable. The assigns character is less than hyphen. And it's usually pronounced gets, as in x gets 1. As you can see, after I hit return, both the blue x gets 1 jumped up one line in the console, and over on the top right in the environment pane, you can see now that there's a variable called x with a value of 1. So if you want to check that, you can come back down to the console and type x, and it will report back to you the value in x. And the reason there's a 1 in brackets before the value of x is that R always wants to tell you how much information is there. So for example, if I were to give x a longer value, a string of numbers called a vector, then it would probably tell me how long those were too. In any case, the basic message here is that you can ignore those brackets for the moment. I want to practice something. So you can give any variable any value. For example, let's make a variable called Amelia. I've typed it, notice, without quotation marks. And I get a red error message. Why did I get a red error message? I got a red error message because I haven't created that object yet. So what would work? Let's say I gave the object called Amelia 1. I don't know. Amelia's number 1? Sure, why not? Now, Amelia and x have the same value. That's useful. Let's try Amelia minus X. What do you know? 0. Amelia plus X is 2, right? So we can use RStudio as like the world's fanciest, slowest pocket calculator. This is not actually much of what we're going to do, but I want to sort of show you the basics of assigning values to variables. The variable is the thing on the left-hand side, and the value is the thing on the right-hand side after the gets symbol. And you can assign values that aren't just numbers. So for example, you could assign Amelia the value, let's choose Amelia. Okay, so now we have a sort of complicated thing to think about. We have a variable called Amelia that has the value Amelia in quotation marks. Now if I say Amelia, I get that character, that string value. Now if I say Amelia plus 1, what's your guess? What do you think will happen if I try to add 1 to the word Amelia? Oh, bummer. It's an error message. Non-numeric argument, that's Amelia, to binary operator. An operator is anything that sort of does something to something else in R. In this case, the plus sign. So it says, oh, you tried to use a binary operator, a plus sign, with something that wasn't a number. We're not going to do that for you. On the other hand, if I wanted to say, how many characters long is Amelia? I could say n chair, that's for number of characters, parenthesis, Amelia. Hey, what do you know? It's 6. So there are some functions, such as n chair, number of characters, that can operate on strings, on words, on text. And there are some operators that cannot, such as, for example, a plus sign. So that is assigning values to variables. And that and much of the other kind of basic practice items are things that are going to happen in the lower left pane called the console window. Another thing that happens in the console window is look at the top. You should see, in my case, I'm moving the mouse around it. You can see right next to the black console is where my current working directory is. So that's tilde, meaning my home directory / desktop / psci232. Yay! That's good, because what that is the folder where I intend to do most of my work in psci232. Cool? Cool. Okay. The next thing I want to show you how to do in this console window is to get and set the working directory. Ready? First, let's have RStudio tell us what is the current working directory. Get wd, and this is a function that takes no arguments, but you still have to use the parentheses. So get wd, open close parens, return. And there is the value of get working directory. This tells me that I'm currently in /users /aah92, and that's my home directory, /desktop /psci232. That's awesome. That's just where I want to be. The next thing I want to do is set the default working directory. This is going to be really helpful for you, since most of our work will take place in the psci232 folder. So if you don't already have a psci232 folder in a sort of sensible, accessible place, you should make one. I made mine on the desktop for the purposes of this video, at least. There it is. For Mac users who might not know, you can make a new You can make a new folder using this little asterisk looking menu. Pull it down to new folder. So I'll give you a minute, or you can pause, pause the video. Make sure you have a PSI232 folder somewhere accessible on your computer. Okay, I'm assuming you've done that now. And we're gonna check we're gonna set our default working directory. To do that, we're gonna go here to the Preferences menu. And we're gonna look, the very first thing that comes up, the literally first thing under General, is default working directory when not in a project. You can ignore that project language, you just wanna set this. Mine is already set, but I'm gonna go through the process of setting it again so that you can see. So to do that, you hit Browse. That should bring up something like this. And you will navigate to the folder you want to be your usual PSI232 folder. So in my particular case, I click my home directory, AAH92. I click Desktop, and there is PSI232. I click that, and I click Open. And there it is. Having done that, you can hit Apply and then OK. All right. So now you have a default working directory that is your PSI232 folder. We'll talk more in the next video about sort of why file structure is important to us and how to navigate around the file structure. For now, I want to talk to you about the right-hand side panes. On the top right, we noticed earlier, is the environment pane. There's also a history pane that says, what is everything you've typed in? There's a connections pane that we mostly won't use, but the environment pane tells you everything that's in your environment, which is to say, everything that RStudio knows about. So when you read in a data set, it will get listed there. When you assign a value to a variable, it will get listed there. When you run a model, the model object will itself get listed there. So the environment pane can be really useful just for reminding you what's on hand. It's not something that I use a lot, but I know some people really do. And then on the lower right is a pane with a series of windows. So files, which we mostly won't use, plots. This is in case you make a fancy graph. It'll show up in that picture. Packages, which we'll talk about in another video in a moment. Help, and the viewer. I don't use the viewer at all. I don't honestly know what it's for. If anybody can find out, you can have some extra credit. But let me talk to you about the help window for a moment. So there are two ways to use the help window on the bottom right of your RStudio window. You can either come over to the console and say $get WD, and it will look up get WD in R's help package. Right, and when it looks that up, what you will see is, so you'll see the name of the function you've just looked up. You'll see the fact that it's R documentation. There'll be a one-liner that tells you the basic thing that function does. There'll be a longer description. There'll be usage, and there will be arguments. We're going to talk more in a moment, or more in another video, about what an argument to a function is. But essentially, as I mentioned earlier, getWD is a function that takes no arguments. And then you'll see here is what it returns. There'll be any notes. And at the very bottom, you can see, you will be able to see examples of usage. So for example, here's WD gets, let's not do that. Let's do WD gets get WD. So before I hit return, think for a minute. What do you expect the value of the new variable WD to be? There's your answer up in the environment pane. So WD now has been set to the file path to the current working directory. The other ways to get help in R, right? So that was a single question mark, which you can only use with the exact name of a function. So if I went get WDD, it would say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. But if I tried double question mark get WDD, it would think for a minute and still not find any results. That's a bummer. But often you can use double question mark to do less exact searching. Another way to do that is to go over here in the actual help pane and say, get WD. There we are at the help again, or get WDD. And this time you can see that the search worked, even though we had the wrong we did not have the exact right function name. So it says, hey, look, here's a help page that is a lot like that. And lo and behold, there it is again. So final recap. On your top left is your source code. On your bottom left is your console. On your top right is the environment. On the bottom right is several things, I think the most relevant of which is help. In the next video, we'll talk about your computer's file structure, and we will practice setting the working directory from the console window. All right. Have awesome times.